Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Reads. Today I want to talk about Where Dragons Lie by R.A.V. Salsitz. Yes, that's how you pronounce her name. Maybe. Where Dragons Lie is basically a standard 1980s fantasy trope. Basic plot outline, you have two primary characters. There's the Princess Charlene, who you find out in the first chapter, like her family's castle is being besieged by an evil sorceress. She kind of flees with the intent of finding help, and through an accident winds up stranded somewhere she does not know how. And then there is the warrior Arundar, who has also some interesting little backstory that you find out when you first meet him. He's being pursued by something. You're not exactly sure what. He says he's being pursued by Valarak's. You know, he can feel Valarak's claws behind him, kind of thing. He's being pursued by something monstrous. Arundar is called Dar for short. These two meet up. They basically go on a quest to find the dragon's graveyard. There was supposedly something there that will help each of them in their quests. Along the way, they encounter the wizard Thurgood and his dwarven, not necessarily servant, not necessarily co-worker either. The dwarf's name is Toothpick. Toothpick basically takes care of Thurgood. Thurgood has some kind of debilitation. In common terms, you'd say like he had a stroke. You know, like half of his face is kind of slack. So something happened to him in the past. You basically get like, it's pretty basic stuff. You know, it reminds me, it reminds me of like when Star Wars was, when Star Wars was a big blockbuster hit, when Conan the Barbarian was a big blockbuster hit, there were all these cheesy knockoffs that came out that were, some of them were okay. None of them were at the same quality of Star Wars and Conan the Barbarian, but they were at least entertaining. You know, they were forgettable but fun. This is the same thing. You know, this came out in 1985. The Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms novels had started coming out based on Dungeons and Dragons. They were very, very popular, sold very well. So there were a lot of, I wouldn't say knockoffs. I've read some critics compare this as a knockoff of the Dragonlance novels. It doesn't quite feel that way to me. I think there's some decent world building. The characters, I think, as their backstories are teased out, there's some interesting little twists there. There's something here, and I think with a little more polish, it could have been great. You know, Charlene and Dar meet. They travel together. At first, they don't get along well, but of course, Charlene is beautiful and gorgeous princess. Dar is a handsome, strapping young warrior. I find that the romance between the two of them is at sometimes cute and fun, and sometimes it's like, really, they've fallen deeply in love this quickly. It's like, there's the attraction, the parts that show them being attracted to each other, I think is well handled. The fact that they have undying love for each other within a couple of days, or not necessarily a couple of days, but within a very short period of time, that's the badly written part of it. Their initial attraction, I think, is written very well. They meet Thurgood and Toothpick, because they need a wizard to help them on their journey to find the dragon's graveyard. Yeah, I think the criticisms of this are somewhat unfounded. The book is short. Look at this. There's nothing to it. When I reviewed Fire Drake, which is actually shorter than this, a lot of my similar criticisms with the shortness of that book follow with this one as well, in that with a book this short, there's not a lot of time to develop plot, to do things. That doesn't mean short books are bad. You can have, look at all of Terry Pratchett's books are short. Um, Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy, the trilogy itself, the whole thing is less than 700 pages. Lord of the Rings trilogy is, I think, about the same. There's maybe 720 pages of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, maybe 750 for 3 books. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's what got me thinking too. I'm like reading this book and like, are all these books from those days so short? And it's like, yes, they are. I didn't realize it. When I read these books at the time, I didn't realize that 225, 230, 250 pages. A book that was like 275 pages was kind of long by those standards, the standards of the day. And this book is 255 even. This was the average size of a fantasy or science fiction novel, 60s, 70s, and 80s. There were very few. I think I've gotten spoiled by reading longer books, especially Brandon Sanderson. Man, that man, those books are thick. Wheel of Time is thick. Dune is thick. I've got some thick books here. And yeah, so I think I've gotten more used to books that were written that are longer. Books that are close to 300 to 400 pages, or sometimes even longer than that. But I think the length of books has gotten a bit bigger in the interim since the genre has started to be taken more seriously, since it started making money and people started taking it seriously. This book also ends on a cliffhanger. There is a sequel. There are actually 3 books in the series. I know I have them all. I have the second one on the shelf. I don't know I didn't see the third one when I was pulling books out of the shed to read. I know I have it because I know I've read it. And I burned through this pretty quickly but going back and revisiting it, I did find that, like I said, there's some good stuff here. It's just really short. And it's what I call fluff. It is what it is. It's a basic sword and sorcery adventure. It's like not cheap. It's got about as much emotional weight as your average sitcom. Not necessarily as funny, but it's just a fantasy adventure. No one's going to be quoting anything from this book anytime soon. I have to say it's kind of forgettable. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just, I remembered it, and even though I liked it a lot when I read it, I liked all these books from R.A. Salsitz when I read them. It's basic popcorn fare, a lot like Fire Drake it was. It's the kind of thing where you plug in for whatever time it takes and you read it and you put it down and say, well, that was kind of fun. What's next? I don't think it's the kind of book you're going to be, telling your friends that they have to go read. You're really like, yeah, it was okay. It was fun. Nothing great. Nothing you're missing out on by not reading it. It's just kind of a simple, easy, fun book to read. It's definitely, I would consider it B+. Some of the criticism that I've said, and that it's just kind of here, and it is what it is. There are some moments where the story feels rushed, and there are some moments where I think the story pulls together very well. It's just in that little bit of stuff in there that it just doesn't quite meet the level of, you must read this. If you find it in a dollar store for $1, 255 pages, you can read this in an afternoon, to kill. There are better written books out there that I would recommend more. But, like I said, if you got the time and nothing else to do, it's a fun read. Like I said, B+ for effort. With a little more effort, a little more skill on the part of the author, this could have been a much better book, because there is some decent stuff here. It's just nothing to write home about, which I'm sorry to say, especially since I did really, really like this book. It's just something I can't recommend. I don't want to say I can't recommend it. It's not something you must read. It's something that's fun to read, and you can read it if you want to. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.